Right, this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to Biddle Town Council YouTube page. The aim is that decision-making should be transparent and in public domain, which will involve more of our community in local democracy. By being in the council chamber, you are consenting to being recorded and for your images to be added to YouTube. The images and sound may be used for training purposes. Any views expressed are the speaker's own and do not necessarily reflect the view of Biddle Town Council. Please view the guide on recording in public meetings policy if you need more information. Right, thank you very much, colleagues. We have a packed agenda, so I'm conscious of time. Apologies, same as before.
Councillors Eardley, Harper and Rushton.
Thank you. Declarations of interest, pecuniary interests, any? No. Other interests, any? No. Okay, to approve and sign the minutes of the Recreation and Amenities meeting held on December the 12th, 10th of October 2023. May I do that? Thank you. Our trusty pen and sign. Glasses out of the way, please.
Hide your glass.
Underneath. Right, thanks. That's done now. Okay, to receive the notes of the Transport Working Group meeting held on the 11th of October. Are you happy with those, please? Yeah, happy? Yes. Councillor Lawton, thank you very much. Anybody wish to comment on those? No? Okay, all those in favour? Any against? No. That was unanimous. Thank you very much. To consider the future plans for the new Garden of Remembrance at the Woodhouse Burial Ground. Chief Officer.
Thank you. Got a little presentation for you. My thanks to Ange for doing this work. She's been number crunching. Marvellous. Okay, so the current Garden of Remembrance at the town burial ground has 36 remaining plots of the 462 that were available. So we are getting quite close to the end of that. The first interment in that area was in 1997. We've previously discussed as a committee that there is a triangular area on the Woodhouse burial ground site which would be challenging to put full burials in there because of the shape of it, but would actually make a really good new Garden of Remembrance. And we've recommended that area to you in the past, and that's what we're considering now. The recommended area could be in the region of a further 334 plots, which would then give us not quite the capacity of the current Garden of Remembrance, but certainly enough to be thinking about at the moment. We also would like you to consider the idea of a memorial tree. We get lots of requests for alternatives to things like memorial benches and things like that. So the idea of a memorial tree, we'll touch on that. And also there are quite a few burial grounds that are doing these letters to heaven, which is quite a nice idea. Not for everybody, obviously, but it's something that we wondered whether you'd like to consider. We'll move on to that though. Okay, so that's the current Garden of Remembrance, town burial ground, 462 plots. That's the site for that, what that currently looks like. So for those of you who maybe haven't been to the burial ground for a little while, where the roundabout is on the older side of the burial ground, it's just next to that. So that's the area in the Woodhouse burial ground. That's the triangular section there. So that's opposite the area where we've currently been doing full burials. Okay, so there's a couple of different options that we want to consider here, and then we can move forward seeking the views of the planners as regards whether we would need to have planning permission for this. There's no change of use, there's nothing like that, but with the installation of paths and potentially walls or something like that, we want to be absolutely clear what we're asking the planners. So currently the top there is the block and vase, that's the size of that. So the fee that we charge currently for that is an admin fee, that's £121. And obviously the stonemason takes a fee as well for the preparation of those. There are other options though that we've considered, and we just want to be absolutely sure what your view is on those, or whether you'd like us to do more work on certain different types of memorials. So we've looked previously as a committee at these half-sized memorial stones. They are, I believe, in Crewe burial ground. In Uttoxeter, we have these above ground sanctums. So that's a kind of solid granite vault, which is large enough for 2 cremations. That's the sort of size that we're looking at. We have 2 cremations in the existing garden there. So that's a different option to what we've been thinking about previously. It might be that something like those bottom 2 options is now more desirable to members of the public, because we have a lot more people now coming to us for half graves, because of the fact that with a half grave, you get a headstone, which of course with a block and vase, you get a very limited number of words you can put on there. There seems to be quite a desire for a headstone. The idea of a memorial tree, some of the ones that are around at the moment look like this. So we would install that somewhere. They could be they're quite beautiful and effective, really. And each person who essentially you pay for a leaf with the name of your loved one. And it's quite a nice feature. It's something to consider. There hasn't been a lot of uptake on benches. There's quite a significant cost to the installation of the type of benches that we want, but there is an appetite, we feel, for a kind of memorial that's a more cost-effective option, actually, but gives people the opportunity to do something like for their loved ones. There's also things like memorial walls that people have. So there's no interment of cremated remains in there, but they can have names and short messages and things like that on there. And basically, you buy a plaque that goes on the memorial as well. This is this idea of the post box, the letters to heaven. Essentially, people write what they want to, and they post it. And obviously, they have their own thoughts about that. As a town council, would obviously manage what happened to those letters beyond that when they were collected. It might be something that people would be interested in. We could do some consultation on that, or could give it a whirl and see what people think. Oh, there we are. Right, okay. So we've agreed, I think, the triangular area before, just confirming that with you.
Yes.
What am I looking at memorial wise? Do we want to look at these options with smaller headstones? Is that what I'm asking for? In terms of the kind of planning requirements and what we'd need to install down there, and then quotes going forward? Or do you want to stick with something similar to what we've got at the moment? There's obviously a desire for that. People are still doing quite a number of burials for cremated remains plots. Just after a steer from you, really, and we can seek some development installation costs.
Got 2 speakers, Councillor Jones, then Councillor Adrian Lawton, and then Councillor Salt.
It seems to me all this is very nice, but I think it's really irresponsible for us to just make a decision on this stuff on the fly.
I agree.
Wants discussing properly. I don't want to delay decisions on this, but he wants discussing properly outside of this committee with some recommendations coming back to this committee. I think.
Yeah,
have a proper look at it. Perhaps I don't know. You can visit the site. Perhaps get some samples. Have a proper look at it.
I totally agree with you, Councillor Jones, on that particular matter. I've got Councillor Redfern and then Councillor Lawton. Councillor Redfern.
Yeah, I was just about to say the memorial tree, we have a very similar thing at the hospital, which would sadly, I would say, came about due to COVID and a large number of casualties, particularly amongst some of the frontline staff in the initial stages of that terrible epidemic. And they are very popular, and people can purchase the individual piece with the names on. And I certainly wouldn't be adverse seeing something like that in the scheme of things. They are they provide a point for reflection.
For Lawton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can see that there are quite a number of innovative methods of marking the memorials, such as, for example, the tree. And I'm perfectly open-minded to those, for those whom that is suited. If I were to back, if you like, on a foundation type of memorial, mine would be for the miniature headstone, such as which I've seen in Crewe, and I thought to great effect.
Thank you. Councillor Salt and then Councillor Yates, and I think Councillor Jackson.
Picture half-sized headstone. I also think it keeps it in line with the other, the similar look and feel to that particular Woodhouse burial ground, because the memorial stones will be a similar colour to what the other stones are as well. So it's a similar theme. And I also think we need to think about affordability, which is not a nice thing to talk about. But I think if we went for anything bigger, like the above ground vaults, I imagine those being a lot more expensive than the smaller headstones over on this side. And sadly, some families really do struggle to pay for the burial of the dead. I don't think we should impose a tomb that will cost an awful lot of money. I think we should stick with the half-size headstone. So I'd agree with you.
Two further speakers, Councillor Yates and then Councillor Jackson. And I've got some, Councillor Garvey as well.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Jones. I mean, there's some things which have been put up there which I've never even knew existed, to be honest. Now, I think my initial reaction was ooh, but on reflection, I thought ooh, which is subtly different. So I think it does need further discussion. I think you've sown the seed of certainly thought and ideas and whatever. And I'd like to sort of allocate some homework to everybody to because I think logistically getting people the whole committee to go to a churchyard might be difficult. Perhaps over the course of the next month or so, if we find ourselves near a churchyard, visiting a place somewhere, just have a wander through and see what kind of things people are doing.
I'm going to propose a suggestion to you at the end of the discussions. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I think the triangle bit, I mean, getting maximum remains for space, then we shouldn't be looking at the half graves for that bit. That bit then should be just for the ones that we've got, the similar ones that we've got in the other side. And then if we are looking at half graves, then I think we need to look at another section completely. I think some really lovely ideas there. I think, and if we put those things in there, no doubt people will use them. It's because they're not there. They haven't got the option. And I take on board what Jill said, but somebody might want to pay pay extra for something slightly different. So I think there's a lot of really good ideas there. But I think we've got to be really careful about allocation of the most precious part of that.
Yes.
That's the land. So I think as far as tonight's meeting, I think we could probably agree that area is the bit that we use for interments for cremated remains. We could make that decision, I think, at least tonight, but I think there's some of the other us
would agree.
We do need to look at a little bit more in depth.
Councillor Garvey, final speaker.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to similar lines to Councillor Jackson. My concern was in terms of the effective use of the space the type of memorial that we're going down will perhaps impact the number of interments you can do in the space that we have available. And I think alongside the information on the pictures, we need to get an idea of what impact that would have if we went with that particular design on the number of interments we could do in the space that's available to us. I think we need to have that information because that may be pertinent to the decision that we make.
I know. I think we need, sorry?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, of course, Chief Officer.
Would it be appropriate then if we sent out this presentation to you for further consideration for homework, as Councillor Yates says, so you can spend the next few months visiting churchyards, if you will. But would it be appropriate? We've had a couple of positive speakers in relation to the half-size memorials. Would it be beneficial to you if we worked that option up, just with some kind of ideas of costs, whether there will be planning needed, that kind of thing? That'll give you a different, perhaps a different view on it. But now just trying to think of ways to move it forward, because obviously the 40-odd graves that we've got left won't last forever, will they? And, you know,
No,
kind
they
of
won't.
developing stuff does take time.
Yeah, I would agree. That's what I was going to propose, is that the Chief Officer sends this presentation out to the members and you have a little look at it and come back with suggestions over the through December, so that by the time we come round to January again, we have a very good idea of the way people are feeling. I'm reluctant to take any more speakers unless it's very, very brief, please. Councillor Garvey and then Councillor Salt.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. I think the Chief Officer's idea is very good, but can I request that we also have in comparison the current type of memorial and effectively the
Yes, absolutely.
have upon the
Okay, so I'm just saying that's the same. So the idea, the space that's needed for the smaller headstone is the interment basically happens just in front of that, so it's the same space that we currently have. It isn't a half grave, actually, the smaller headstone. That is an option that people choose because they want a headstone, but the smaller headstone would be in the same space as the current.
Thank you for the clarification. Yes.
Councillor Salt, final speaker.
Just to clarify, we're just getting, the half headstone is just a taller version of what we've got now. So it's a bit more writing on. It's exactly the same space, it's just a taller version. Basically, that's fine.
Okay. So are you happy with that? All those in favour, please?
Thank you. So we'll work that up then and essentially put it back on the agenda first thing in January for.
You can't vote. Okay, Councillor Salt will issue out. Are you happy then that we concentrate on this particular triangle area and we're happy with that to be used for this purpose?
Yes.
All those in favour, please. So the Chief Officer has a steer.
I voted on that previously, Chair.
Yeah, I know, but we're just making absolutely sure, Councillor Garvey, the Chief Officer's not sure that, you know, your intentions. And we don't want to.
Leave that there if I was you.
Yes, yeah, along that.
Yeah, I think so as well. Right, okay, move on.
I think you get the same quality of steer.
Yes, okay, here we are. Item 42, requested by Councillor Harper. This is actually, we're gonna put that to one side for the time being, because Councillor Harper isn't here, but also it's covered in an item on confidential as well, that we have as a regular item number 47. Councillor Yates.
Yes, just a brief on this. I wasn't sure whether to raise this item 41 or 42, but a lot of people, when he mentioned memorial trees, I thought you actually meant the proper tree, not one we're sticking things on. And we have discussed before allocating land for a memorial tree avenue. And I think the scope, because at the moment, memorial trees where people put a plaque are randomly positioned on an ad hoc basis. And I think we could do something where we plan for the future and have a nice memorial avenue. And with regards to finding an alternative burial site, there's a lot of people now who like to scatter the ashes in woodland and things like that. So we could look at something a little bit outside of the box where we purchase a small wooden.
We'll leave that.
Well done. Where we purchase, yeah, where we purchase a small wooden cops, of which I'm sure there's quite a few of those available in Biddle, for people to.
Yeah, this is,
For people to scatter ashes, but at the same time, they actually purchase a tree which can go into the tree avenue as the permanent reminder where.
very good idea, but we'll discuss it as 47. Okay, I'm going to move on then at 43, to consider the budget for the committee for the 24-25, information and dates attached. Now, I want you to go away and have a look at this. In some detail over the next month or so. And I would like it that you come back to the chief officer at the next meeting.
We haven't got time for that,
We haven't
Chair.
got time.
No, that's why it's on in November, because you don't meet in December and then we consider the budget proposals.
Oh,
in
so
January.
can we push this to finance then?
No, because you, as a committee, you have to decide what your priority.
Oh, all right, okay, we're
So
short
as-
of time, so
Yeah,
we'll,
so as a committee, you focus on allotments. I've included the spend that's associated with this committee. You focus on allotments, burial grounds. Most of the funding that you spend is focused on burial grounds, so the maintenance of that. So the bus hub falls within this committee, green spaces, so that's the butterfly garden, any footpaths work. The visitor centre as an existing amenity is part of this committee, as is the 93 bus. There's some of those going through to the next financial year will be as they are currently, because we've obviously committed to the contract with the 93 bus for a further 2 years beyond this year.
yeah,
So that's, and the same with the grounds maintenance work, we've got a further 18 months beyond where we are at the moment with that. So those funding allocations will be the same. If you want, as with the budget this year, and that's why I included the large A3 sheet, if you want to do some development activity, and we're in the same position that we currently are with regards to gas, electric, water bills, you'll have to do your development work, I think, from earmarked reserves. But we do take this opportunity at this time of the year through committees to identify any projects that you want to move forward in the next financial year.
thank you.
I'd suggest to you that your Garden of Remembrance is one of urgency, and that since we've been talking about allotment development, that's your big development project as well. Obviously, it's your opportunity to kind of raise anything. I'm happy for you to do that outside of this meeting, because it will be scrutinised in other committees as well, but it won't, that discussion won't come back to this committee because there isn't time to do that before the precept is
No.
issued.
Okay. So councillor Salt, you wish to speak?
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna raise it now anyway, because it's there. We've got these grants. I think it just should be an annual town council grant pot. And we need to scrap the proposed figures for the Biddle Festival, Biddle Thimbley, Biddle Lifeline, maybe not Biddle Lifeline, Citizens Advice. Those all need to go, because we don't ring fence grants. We don't say what people are going to get. And therefore it should all be in a big grant pot and shouldn't be separated, because that implies they're going to get it, and that's not fair.
Yeah, agreed.
Page two.
Well, Jackson?
Just in from what our chief officer just said there, do you wish this committee to offer up a sum that we take, that we put in to this committee's work the next year? If that's the case, could we just fire it up with an extra £10,000 into allotments with the proposal of Shepherd Street allotments possibly going forward? If we've got sort of a pot of 10,000 that we can use as funding that brings in X funding from elsewhere, then that money's there. And having said that, then do we need to be looking at for next year a pot of money for the development of the Garden of Remembrance that we've just talked about?
I think so.
What
Yes.
figure do you think should we kick up to that?
It's,
Suggestions, chief officer?
I don't know the answer to that, because I don't know at the moment whether we need planning permission, and it's better if you've got to start paying for plans and that process, and then putting pathways in and that kind of thing. It might be 15,000, 10, 15,000 for that.
Are we talking, chief officer, for the two, £30,000? Yeah.
30,000 for the Garden of Remembrance.
and the allotments. Because you've already had a proposal from
Yeah.
councillor Jackson of £10,000 for allotments. Another 20 for the Garden of Remembrance.
If we, of course, if we allocate it, we don't have to spend it, do we? This spend for Garden of Remembrance is on the infrastructure. Don't forget, we're not putting the stones in. We are paying for the pathways and the potential conditions.
Groundworks.
In theory, it shouldn't, the ground is already flat. It's already been prepared for what might come before us, as it were. So I hope it wouldn't be vastly expensive, but we will obviously have to go through a tender process
we
for
will.
that. So if we allocate 20 for Garden of Remembrance and 10 for allotments development,
Are you
obviously
happy with
we
that?
can come back and think about it.
Right, I need a proposer and a seconder for that. Proposer, councillor Jackson and councillor Yates, seconder. All those in favour? Unanimous, I think. And councillor Salt, you can't vote. So, are you happy with that? That covers that now, Chief Officer.
It does. We're going to go and see the Butterfly Garden on Friday. I hope no one's forgotten that special jaunt we've got
Fine.
there.
Fine.
Um,
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock?
10:30.
I've got it.
Plus 10.
I've got 11. Can we make it 11,
We
please?
make it 11, Chief Officer, because we've got a meeting with Matt Swindle first.
It's in for 10:30. I can change it to 11 if that suits most. It won't take very long. It's not a very big area, but
Just getting back from
what
Link.
you might see when you get there might influence whether or not you want to spend some money on it or not.
Yes,
So
exactly.
if we could keep that in abeyance and consider that
Yeah.
maybe as a supplementary item for the budget for this. Oh, is it?
Sorry. Are you happy with 11 o'clock, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That gives councillor Garvey and myself a bit of time to see.
Just imagine.
Yes. Jobs for the linksman. Councillor Yates, can you?
Yes, as is usual this time of year, because nobody else does it, the curve around the top of the bypass going into Tunstall Road is getting particularly scratchy. And while they're doing it, and it pains me to ask, 3/4 of the way up Meadows Way, there's just an offending bush, which is encroaching quite badly onto the footpath. We haven't had any individuals complaining yet, but we need to flip it in the. Yes.
Nip it in.
Any further suggestions from the floor? Okay, councillor Garvey.
Can I request that the bridle way that runs from the corner of Leek Lane to Stonyfields, that be looked at, because I know that they've historically done the top end of it. It's the back of my garden, and I trimmed all my, National Power cut down my hedge. But the bit beyond me is it's a green tunnel. That's the first section. I think it's just that one section.
I was going to say, he's been there and done a bit on that this year, but if there's missed a bit, we'll go back.
No, I think it's at the top. He did it.
Yeah.
And then National Power came and cut my hedge down without asking. I won't go into any detail.
It's right away off the corner
It's
of
the
the
bright
lane.
from the corner of Leek Lane up to Stonyfield, isn't it, John?
Yeah, I didn't think it was that bad, to be honest.
Well, no, the bottom end isn't. It's the top end. It's basically.
Depends how big your horse is.
Yeah.
Councillor Redfern.
You go through the dog.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. Are we sure it's bridle way?
Yeah,
It's a footpath.
I think it's a footpath, because I think the only bridle way we've got is actually up in Newtown
Mhm.
that goes
There is one in Newton, I know, Riddick.
road along there, because I can remember in the past, up there with volunteers, cut down the mountainous that grows there. And at the time I was assured that was the only actual
Might be right.
technically, because we've got to be very careful when we start calling things bridle
You
way.
could be right, but on
Because there is an organisation around that seems to feel that bridle ways are suitable for all sorts of motorised vehicles.
Just referencing that yeah, it used to be on the OS map as a bridleway rather.
It's for small horses that go woof. Right, okay, I'm
Yes,
happy with that.
so
We'll have it seen to.
Interesting.
Right, we're going to move into confidential now. Thank you very much, everyone, that's on YouTube. You've been watching us. I hope it's been enlightening. but we're moving into confidential. So thank you very much.